Good morning, everyone, here at Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church, and good morning to all people on Zoom. Of course, on Zoom, if you haven't done so, please turn or mute your video, and that would be great. Would like to say thank you to Walter Sipila for being our speaker today, and that's pretty awesome. All right, why don't we start with singing "Let There Be Peace on This Earth." Okay, number 3. It's on your card.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you, Walter. That was awesome. I would like to say this prayer also. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for bringing us all together. As we come together, we open our hearts in gratitude for the space, for opportunity for friendship, and our connection to Spirit. And with this, we say thank you. And then the statement of intent. We continue to be fortunate to have a variety of speakers for Sunday services. And by using guest speakers, we gain wisdom from all those who share. This is a church community where we can worship the God of our own understanding, to experience joy and be uplifted, to gain strength and inspiration we can share with others throughout the week. We invite you to join us in this celebration of life, to nourish your spirit, and to enjoy the community of kindred souls. So next would be announcements, and I just would like to remind people that we have PayPal on our website, and you could donate that way very easily, and we just appreciate everything. And we do have a little box up in the front there. If anyone has suggestions or, just please leave a message in the box for us, and we'll work on that. And also then there's, of course, any prayer requests for anybody. We'll just, hold you all in light and visualize great healing everywhere, I guess. So, okay. Next, we'll say the principles, which actually are the Unity's 5 basic principles. God is the source and creator of all. There is no other enduring power. God is good and present everywhere. Number 2, we are spiritual beings created in God's image. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. We create our life experiences through our way of thinking. There is power in affirmative prayer, which we believe increases our awareness of God. And number 5, knowledge of these spiritual principles is not enough. We must live them. Thank you. I would like to ask Walter to come forward, and you're on. Thank you.
Well, for a Bible reading, I'll go from my memory as best as possible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And everything that was made by God. Boom. So, the title of this is A Smorgasbord of Swedenborg. And I don't know how many people out there are real familiar with this. I've been studying it now for 22 years. And I didn't come from a Christian background so much. I mean, my parents brought me there, but there was, I was thinking back, when I was a young kid, on a Sunday, maybe a few gas stations were open or a drugstore, but otherwise all the other stores were closed. And it was truly a day that people they could relax, they could think about what, and there were a lot more churches in this city at that time. But then people thought, oh, I can make some money on Sunday if I open up a store. And that just started the floodgates. And so now we have this world now where people are so busy all the time and got to make money. And Emanuel Swedenborg was a scientist back in the 1700s who, when he was 56 years old, claimed that Jesus came to him, that the church had become, there was no connection with the heavenly realm anymore because it just wasn't being taught properly. And this would have been the apocalypse that came through him. Apocalypse being a Greek word that means revelation. And that there is an inner spiritual meaning in the Bible, in the words, that up to that point, all people had was the literal meaning. And so they could relate. And of course, the Bible had to be written in things that we know, houses and trees and rivers and things like that. But he relates that all things on this earth, all things created, come from the heavenly realm. They come down through different heavens, and this is the final, this is the bottom, this is where everything, the effect of everything else. And as human beings, we are the end. We're the end that was imagined in the beginning, of a being that could realize God, that could think about God, and could love God. And God created the means for that to happen. And the means are all the world, the planet, all the animals, all the vegetation, all these things. And they all represent some aspect of the heavenly realm. The animals represent emotions and feelings. The vegetation represents aspects of the mind. And so, without that inner meaning, the teachings of the Bible became just confused. And people wanted, face it, people would like an easy religion to believe in, one that allows them to do whatever they want to do. And a lot of the I'm not putting down Christians or churches, because all the people here, all these hundreds of people sitting here, they all understand, they all understand in a different way, in an individual way, that is a culmination and of all that their life has given them, all the things they've experienced. But some churches, well, if I may single out one particular that strives on the Peter, as Jesus saying, well, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom. But in the Swedenborg stuff, you have to not think of person, place, or thing. And Peter represents faith of charity. And so faith is part of our understanding of truth, and charity is of our will or of our love or goodness. And when those two are together, then you're having that access to heaven, to the spiritual realm. But that one particular church took it as, oh, well, that means that Jesus was just a human, and now we'll be the new vicar. We'll be the representative in what we say, and it's like your sins are forgiven you, and no, it kind of went askew. And a lot of the other churches just stressed one little part and said, all you got to do is believe this, sister, brother. Believe in the blood. Believe in the, and you're saved. And that's, ultimately it's true, but it's a lot bigger thing than how it was promoted. And so you have the whole story. Well, take in the beginning how the earth was created in Genesis. It's not how the earth was created. I mean, you have to be a stupid person really to go that, I'm sorry if I've offended anybody out there in Zoom land, but the earth was not created in 6 days. We can trust our science on this, and shows that it's millions and billions of years old. But the Bible is a spiritual book. And those days of creation is how the spiritual person is made. We're all on day one. And day one is, what's in it for me? I want, it's like all this kind of level. We're dealing with our senses and what we see and feel. And when you're living in that realm, it's like, I could steal from you, and if I can get away with it and you don't know about it, ha-ha, goody goody. Day two is when we first start to have pangs of conscience, when we do something and we get this feeling inside like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I feel kind of crummy. But still, we're living on that exterior part, the part that we present to the world. And then where it's talking about the waters above and the waters below and the firmament in between. The waters below are just that, they're truth. They're the kind of truths that we learn through our senses. Firmament is our rational ability. The waters above are truths of heaven in the spiritual realm. And unless we we're all born into that first level, and most of our young childhood and adulthood is all spent in that level. But hopefully at some point we start to wonder that, hey, I'm going to die someday. What happens then? What becomes of me? And what can I do now to affect what becomes of me? So a lot of us are at that level, where we have our rational mind stands between those two. In the Bible, like I say, people, places, numbers mean things. You have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham is that essence of God. Isaac is that rational ability. And Jacob stands for the national, or the rational, earthly, natural part. Not the rational. Isaac is the rational. And so all the things in the stories where it's talking about that, in the Swedenborg material, you're not thinking about those people. You're not thinking about that at all. It's dealing with aspects of our own mind. Let me just... You know, in the end, after Christ had been crucified and a couple of apostles are walking to the city, and he all of a sudden appears with them and starts walking, and they're asking, wow, haven't you heard what went on? And they're telling him, and finally they sit down and they break bread, which is, bread is goodness, or that aspect of thing, and breaking it is, oh boy, it's appropriating it, it's realizing it. And he tells them all the things in the Bible. It's all about him. All the books of Moses, all the prophets, all the Psalms, it's about him. And yet if you read the Bible literally, it's like, I don't see it. It's very difficult, you know. But here's a little list of what some of those people mean. By the Lord is represented Abraham, and also by Isaac, as well as by Jacob. And he's also represented by Abraham, the Lord is represented as to the divine itself. By Isaac, as to the divine rationality. By Jacob, as to the divine natural. By Moses, as to the law of the historic word. By Elijah, as to the prophetic word. By Aaron, as to the priesthood, and by David, as to the royalty. So in those stories, it's really hard to relate what's spiritual in this when you read a lot of those things. But and mind you, Swedenborg didn't come up with this on his own. There's no way. I mean, I showed you last time I spoke, there's a book pile about this high of 500, 600, 700 page books like this, just to describe the 40 pages of Genesis. And, okay, let's go to you're gonna die. That's a truth. And what becomes then? You know, I was real fortunate in this church when it was a spiritualist church. We had a really good medium, and he convinced me a lot right from the first time I met him, because he told me about a woman in our family that I should go and see, and a couple months later she died. And I thought, at that time this church was getting egged at Halloween and woo, but I realized that man is connecting. He's a mystic connected with the esoteric meanings of things. And he loves Swedenborg. So Swedenborg kind of, when we die, there's about 3 days go by, and we're woken up on the other side. He says evidently there's like a film that gets pulled off the left eye, and they can tell, the angels that are with us then can tell whether you're conscious or in thinking, you know, being able to pay attention. So then you're woke up. It sounds as though Jesus kind of prevents us from thinking about what happened back here on this earth, because there's nothing we can do about it at that point. And how horrible that would be to have, you know, wondering what's going on there or what happened and this and that. So it's an act of his mercy that we're held from those kinds of earthly concerns. And then it's more a matter of, okay, a determining of what kind of truths, you know, what have you learned to be called, what do you call truth? And what has been your motivation, your love, your will, the endeavors of your life? Have the endeavors and the things that you've done been purely for your sake? Or have they been for others? Now when a person, excuse me, when a person's younger, it's quite acceptable that you're going to be involved with going for be all you can be, go for all the gusto. You learn, you got to, you know, all the things of being a human here, and providing a house and food and clothing and things like that. But in the spiritual realm, those things are given. You don't, there's no food you have to work for, or housing, or clothing. Take those away from this life here, and okay, what are you going to do? Are you just going to seek pleasures? Are you just going to take and have a big table and eat all the time? It's like, why do we do what we do? Because that, over time, will imprint and will determine where we'll end up afterwards. Now there's, even though it's written in the Bible that God will send, it's like, oh, you did bad, you go, Arr. No, it isn't like that at all. God is all love and mercy, the essence of God, the essence of Jesus. But and by that I mean, when Jesus came into this world, he was the Word made flesh. And so he was born like a human. He went through the same struggles, the same temptations, everything just like we do. But his Father was the essence of love and life. So he had a much better background, kind of. Our background goes back generation, just back and back and back. And you can talk about genetics determining who we are, we look like our family, but there's also epigenetics in that we've also accumulated all the good and the evil that people have done, the evil more or less. And that, when a person gets older, comes out, and we struggle with that. It isn't ours unless we act upon it. If you were born into a family of murderers, it doesn't touch you unless you decide, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to murder somebody. He makes a rather extraordinary thing that for the first, say, 20 years or something like that, the mother's family has a dominant effect on the child. But after that, it's the father's family and their hereditary things that come into play much more. Either way, it's still what we make our own by acting upon it. It's kind of the same with how do you make a truth really yours? You have to, it's like being good to people, giving to people that need your help. In the church right now, it's kind of taught, and most people think, it's like, well, you just help the needy. If it's got the person's got their hand out there, they're starving, this and that, you help them. But, and I'm not saying withhold food from people that are starving, but what if that person is then just going to go and buy drugs and maybe kill somebody to get more money? Then you're not really helping that, you're not serving God or helping that person really. So charity involves a discriminating who, you want to love the goodness in other people. That's what you really love. And although I must say that charity in a broad way is doing what is right and just and proper in every duty and employment. You do more charity in your job when you do your job efficiently, effectively, and without, what can I get away with? I worked in an organization where there were some people that had the motto, the slower I go, the more they pay me. And they laugh and they giggle, but it's like, oh no, even if you think of it, if we all did that, what would happen, Let me think here. He talks about and I still don't have it clear, truth from good and good from truth. Those are like different things. And so it's, okay, so you can learn a truth and it can affect you and change your behavior, and you act good. You do good things from it. But it's more so a closer thing to the heavenly realm, or what would be celestial, would be that there is goodness in you, and from that goodness comes truth. Good and truth are like the heavenly marriage. He talks about how good loves truth and truth loves good. It's like, and unless a truth is connected with his goodness, it's not really truth or good. And it becomes connected when it becomes of our life, when it becomes an act, when we live it. That is the key thing. So we're going to die. And we're there a few days, and we're taken around, and there's like schools. Because it, like he says, some people, when they die, they don't even think they're dead, because you still have a body. It appears just like you are here. And a lot of mysterious things go on if you think about it, but, and so we're taken around, then there's classes, and people are educated to see if they whether respond to these things, whether they have made them their own. And then it sounds as though you're taken to different societies in the heavenly realm, in the realm of spirits, and to see if you feel comfortable there. You know, there's some people that find it very uncomfortable to be to a church. They feel very comfortable in a bar, or in a library, or in different places. And eventually you're led around to a place where it's like, wow, I'm just so comfortable here. We choose where we end up on our own. And so say a person in this life, in this world, has really set a pattern of domineering, wanting to get their own way by whatever means. And it's kind of like, in whatever they do, that's the final end that they're looking at, is like, I want to have my way. Well, that's not I mean, in a certain way you could look at heaven as where people serve others and they want to help others. And you can look at the hellish realm as, I want people to serve me. I want to control them. And there's no God that judges us as to where we go. We'll choose it on our own, depending upon the quality of the life that we have built within ourselves. And so we need self-reflection. We need to look at ourselves. You know, I've always thought that good spiritual teaching is like a mirror. And it isn't just one that shows you, you know, oh, aren't I great? Oh, I'm just such a good guy. But one that shows you all the pustules and all the scars and pimples and everything else that you've got there, that we can then work on, think about, and with prayer, get help to distance ourselves from those. Not that they're ever not a part of us, but they get so far out to the periphery of our being that they don't affect us anymore. The Swedenborg stuff talks a lot about, well, not a lot, but about auras, and that everything has it. And we can sense other people like that. I'm sure everybody's had those experiences of walking by somebody or someone, and you just feel like, you know. Well, the old cartoon characters of like, you got an angel on this corner and a devil here, is really pretty close to the truth, except you got two and two. Two because of the two aspects of our being, our mind, our will, and our understanding. And when life starts in the embryo, the first thing that grows is the brain. And from that one thing, it sends out fibers that then grow the rest of the body. So you think about it, that life and love is given to us. It's the essence of God. And we're meant to live that, and our body is beautifully created to express that. All the different parts of our body express it in different ways, different aspects of it. And so that brings up some interesting things as far as health, sicknesses, and that gets real personal real quick with a lot of people. But I don't know, I've been looking at things for 20-some years now that way. And mind you, I have background in acupuncture and massage and radionics and homeopathy and all kinds of mumble. And a lot of those are really good and very effective for what they can do. But they're not dealing on that soul level. That soul level, we get access through turning within. We have an inner person. So here we are at the third day of creation. Got the rational mind starting to ponder heavenly topics, starting to look for something that we can really trust in, that we can accept as an authority other than just me. And at that point, within ourselves, we realize real quickly when we've done something that doesn't feel like it's good. We're ashamed of it. So then what's happening is, instead of the outer part, the exterior part that's ruling our lives and just being concerned about that, we're starting to be ruled by what is inside and the love and the truth that is within us. And so 4, 5, 6, it's a progression where that is slowly evolving. We're learning more and more. We're making him a stronger and stronger part of us that is really uncomfortable if we go against that. And he says very few people make it that far, but if you just make a start, that's worth something. And because it can continue on in the next realm. Now, one of the interesting things that he brings out is that down here in this world we have time and space. In fact, everything we think about is involving time or space. That's why the spiritual things, they're kind of like above that, because in the heavenly realm there is no time or space. The equivalent of space is essence of life, the essence of love. And time is the continual existence or coming forth of that. So the heavenly realms are kind of determined as far as what is your state of loving. Do you have mutual love for all people? Or just your family and friends and those that, kind of agree with you? Because that's not loving. As much as it can be very comfortable. You get around a group of those people and you're feeling pretty good. Get around a bunch of other people you don't know and it's like, Okay, I just jotted down a few things. There's just so much material. He makes an interesting statement that whatever a man wants to conceal contracts his face. I don't know. I got real involved with Japanese physiognomy, facial diagnosis for a while, until it was driving me crazy because you can start and you can see things in people's face. lips, their nose, just, and you can, right or wrong, you're going, oh, you're making all these judgments in that. And like I say, it was driving me crazy. I don't do that anymore. Okay, here's another one. Without affection, you don't learn anything. When I heard that, I thought about back in school where I'd have to take a class that I didn't like. I could get A's or B's on it, but it didn't have any affection. And now I can't even remember. It's just without affection, nothing stays with you. Affection is the thing that really makes it part of you in anything. And temptations. Temptations are, for one thing, he says a person won't even come into temptations until they've gotten somewhere along on the spiritual path. But temptations are what help us define and are like the steps of the ladder on growing. You need to know opposites. If you're a really loving person, you don't even know what that loving really is until you meet somebody that isn't. Because that helps us to define everything. Everything is defined kind of by its opposites. And I don't know, some of us have had things happen in our lives that have been really traumatic, and it's hard to forget. And it makes us really attentive and paying attention whenever that topic comes up or that emotion is expressed towards us. But as we get older, we can see it in, God will give us perspective. We can't do it to ourselves. You want a higher perspective, Walt? It doesn't work. I can't pick myself up. It's why in the Bible too, and just a lot of regular cultures, they would do their sacred or religious ceremonies on mountains and on hills and high places, because there's that correspondence that it's this higher perspective. And that higher perspective it's a spiritual thing. We can't do it ourselves. But we can petition God, so to speak. Show me, teach me. And it might not come right away. I have a physical thing, a medical thing that I've been dealing with for quite a few years now. And it took me about 2 years. And I just kept, because I believe that everything happens first on the spiritual realm. And it took a couple of years before of praying and meditating and this and that, and finally it was a goofy conversation that only lasted really about 5 or 10 minutes in the co-op with an old botany professor that I knew. And a couple things he said, all of a sudden, everything, I could just, click, 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 click. It all fell into place. And I could see how something that had happened to me out there had affected the functioning of my body. Our soul is involved with our functions. The liver doesn't become a liver and then decide, oh, I'm going to purify the blood and the serum and that. The function is coming from the brain through the nervous system, and the function is building the organ. That's why that's why I say that our bodies are beautifully built to express life, and life is function of being useful in this world. Down here we have to be useful to ourselves because we have to eat, we have to sleep, but when all those things are given to us in the spiritual realm, then if we have set a pattern of being useful to others, I think that's where happiness, all those kinds of heavenly qualities, it's a joy to be useful, to be of service, and not expect anything in return. If we're always expecting something in return, we're doing it for ourselves. There isn't goodness there. The people that we maybe do some good thing really like it because we did some good thing to them. But as far as our own soul, it isn't really benefiting it that much, or if at all, because we have ourself in that picture, part of that end that we were looking at. You really want to hear it? Well, my mother passed away in 2016, and in the process there of moving stuff, I wasn't getting too much help, and I gave myself a hernia. And so, like I say, at that point I was still deep into this, everything starts on the spiritual level. So I'm praying and I'm thinking this and that. And in the co-op I ran into, had a long last name. He was the first person to die of COVID in town. He was in St. Anne's, and a relative came from New York to visit him that brought it. And anyway, we're sitting there talking, and he tells me about how when he was 3 or 4 years old, he had been sexually molested. And he'd always remembered the fact that it happened, but in a recent meditation, he was able to go there and feel what had happened at that moment in his body, the feeling he had. And what he described was like a rush of energy down and out. And so we're familiar with chakras, this pre-physical kind of transformative thing that is involved with the growing of the organs in our body and all the parts of it. And in the functioning, the continuing functioning of it. But if something happens that troubles us, that disturbs that energy in that point, it seemed pretty obvious to me that then somewhere in that tissues, the part of the body that it was involved with, that there would perhaps be a drifting away from the divine pattern and into some kind of weakness, because it is a weakness of the fascia of what a hernia is. And all of a sudden that, I could see that in my own life. And it was the next day then I went and signed up to have surgery, although that turned into a fiasco because 2 months after the surgery, I had an incisional hernia caused nowhere even connected with the other ones. And then last March I sneezed while I was watching the news, and boom, the first one was back again. So evidently my learning process in this whole realm is being protracted quite a bit, but so be it, things happen to us, and I'm not going to find myself, or blaming others, I don't think is the way to go. Because I'm still somewhere I'm in that picture by choice, or just because I'm in that picture. Now that may sound kind of goofy. It's amazing how many people have had hernias. That is just a ton. Most people don't talk about it, especially in front of a Zoom camera. But I don't know. I've got nothing to hide. I never have. It's like I'm pretty out, just like, yeah. Yeah. And we learned from each other, you know. Now I could talk about my eyesight, although, and I can look back at that. It was at this time where I had a motorcycle accident, and but these are my high school glasses, the same lenses. Nothing has changed since then. So it's like, in our seeing is really our understanding. I mean, we always say in conversation, "Oh, I see what you mean," meaning we understand what. So there's a real connection between seeing and it's the same with, well, with the ears. Ears have a lot to do with obeying, hearing. I hear what you mean. I hear you, sister. You know, it's like, and yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I could go on. I mean, he's got a lot to say about the fact that here we're nothing but a bunch of tubes and pouches, really. Our body, that's what it is, tubes and pouches. Input, output. And as we take food, and food is, food and drink. Food is goodness, drink is truth. So we take this experiences in, and some things we can assimilate right away in our mouths and the veins, and they're just really assimilated quickly. Some things then go down the stomach where acids and all this. Some things go farther and bile and it's worth, it's like it's trying to get all the goodness out of things. And it's the same, well, with the kidneys. God says he'll judge your heart and your kidneys. It's pretty easy to understand why he would judge our heart. And he's not judging it, it's just like, it's important. Because it represents our love or our will. But our kidneys, well, when we leave this world and go into the next world, we still have a body. All the organs are there, all these parts are there. But we're not having to go to the bathroom. And the equivalency of, down here, the kidneys determine, okay, this is still useful in the body. Let's keep this. This is waste. Let's get rid of that. The equivalency on the spiritual level is, okay, this is true. This is a truth. But this is a false thing. I'm not. So it's discernment of truth is the equivalency on a spiritual level of kidneys. I mean, a lot of this you can get, when you ponder it in your own predicaments or situations, it can be kind of, oh. But I don't know. I don't think we should shy away or turn away from things if we sense something is there. Well, I don't know how much longer I should keep going here. Did you really glad I talked about it? So what's the next sequence, Carol? What's the next in the sequence of? I'll sing that. I'll play it. Oh, let me do one thing. Like I say, the Swedenborg, things in the Bible mean actual things. And so here's something probably people have heard. The kingdom of heaven is like 10 young women who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were prudent and 5 were foolish. When the foolish women took their lamps, they did not take any oil. The prudent women took oil in their lamps. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. In the middle of the night there was a shout, "Behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him." And at that, all the women woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish woman said to the prudent ones, "Give us some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." The prudent women replied, "There might not be enough for us all. Go instead to the cellars and buy yourself some." But as they were going away to buy some, the bridegroom arrived, and the women who were prepared walked in with him to the wedding, and the door was closed. Later, the other women came along and said, "Lord, Lord, open up to us." But he answered, "I tell you truly, I do not know you." Here's what this inner spiritual meaning in that particular thing is. The kingdom of the heavens means heaven and the church. The bridegroom means the Lord. The wedding means the Lord's marriage to heaven and the church through the good that love does and that truth that faith perceives. The young women mean people, not men and women, who are in the church. 10 means all and 5 means part. Lamps mean beliefs. Oil means loving what is good. Sleeping and awakening means our life in the world, which is an earthly life, and our life after death, which is a spiritual life. Buying means acquiring for ourselves. Going to the cellars and buying oil means trying after we have died to acquire from others a love for what is good. Since we can no longer acquire a love for what is good after we die, therefore, they brought their lamps and the oil that they had purchased to the door where the wedding was taking place. And the bridegroom told them, "I do not know you." The reason is that after our life in the world, the way we have lived in this world remains. Now, if you want another juicy one, this is 1 Samuel chapters 5 and 6. And it's kind of paraphrased here. The passage mentions that the ark containing the 2 tablets with the 10 commandments written on there was captured by the Philistines. It was placed in the shrine of Dagon in Ashdod. On the first day, Dagon fell before it to the ground. On the next day, Dagon's head, as well as the palms of his hands, lay severed from his body across the threshold of the shrine. Because of the ark, as many as several thousand inhabitants of Ashdod and Akron were afflicted with hemorrhoids, and their land was devastated by rats. The Philistines therefore called together their provincial governors and diviners. To stave off impending death, they decided that they should make 5 hemorrhoids and 5 rats out of gold, and make a new cart and put the ark on it. And they would send the ark back to the children of Israel on this cart, pulled by 2 cows that would bellow all the way. And the children of Israel would sacrifice the cows and the cart. If the Philistines accomplished this, the God of Israel would be appeased. Okay, I don't know what I'd get out of that spiritually. I just makes, but here's what's revealed through the Swedenborg's work. The meaning of these details clearly shows that everything the Philistine diviners thought of was correspondence. The Philistines themselves meant people who have faith but lack goodwill. Dagon was a portrayal of their religion. The hemorrhoids that afflicted them meant earthly loves that become unclean when separated from spiritual love. The rats meant the devastation of the church by people falsifying the truth. The new cart meant the earthly teachings of the church. The chariot or carriage in the word means teachings based on spiritual truths. The cows meant earthly feelings that are good. The hemorrhoids made of gold meant earthly loves that have been purified and have become good. The golden rats meant goodness remedying the devastation of the church, since gold in the word means goodness. The bellowing of the cows along the way meant the difficulty of turning the lower self's cravings for evil into desires for goodness. The offering of the cows in the cart as a burnt offering meant that by these spiritual actions, the God of Israel would be appeased. A little different meaning than the literal. Okay, Carol.
Thank you, Walt. Thank you so much, and for your beautiful message for your heart. Now we'll just take the offering, and I would like to play in the silence, and Walt will be leading it. page 74 for those who need a reminder.
Is that it, really? In the silence, there is a sacred place, a sacred meeting place. Love is there. In the silence, where every color blends and every rainbow ends, good is there. In the light now you find that you know peace of mind. In the silence, your path is paved in gold, and all your dreams unfold. Love is there. Peace is there. Truth is there. God is there.
I'm so glad you staying for everything. What a great service. Thank you so very much. So I would first like to say thank you for the offering and blessings to the offering as we use this to further our church and our community and all that good stuff. And just a reminder, again, of course, we do have the PayPal, like I mentioned earlier, and that is very, very helpful. And I do want to thank our Mark, and I want to thank Steve here for shoveling this morning. Thank you, Mark and Steve Plaza. And thank you for these wonderful, wonderful people in our church. I'm excited. So, okay, I would like to say our church affirmation. We totally accept the belief that God is in charge of the affairs and direction of Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. We totally know that as our thoughts of trust and joyful anticipation join in harmony with the thoughts of all our members of this fellowship, we attract the right ministerial leadership for our spiritual community, and we are grateful. Yay. I'm going to, for the benediction, say the unity prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God unfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever I am and we are, God is, and all is well. One more thing, we're going to be having a unity service next week. We're still working out details, but it should be fun. Look forward to seeing you all. Okay, I'm going to play God Be With You Till We Meet Again. Mr. Waltz, would you? Okay.
Should I do a prayer now?
Would you like to? Yes, would you please? Thank you.
Well, I think we can all agree that we need help in this world. We need more love, more kindness, mutual love, irrespective of any kind of differences that we see. And we ask to be inspired. We ask that we get personal revelation from the higher realms, the good angels and spirits that are with us. We humble ourselves, or we humble our heart. For it's a humble heart that is receptive. And as vessels, we choose to absorb and to make of our life the love and the truth that we learn. May we have a good week and be kind and gentle to others. Amen. God be with you till we meet again. By his counsels God uphold you. On his love securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Neath his wings protecting hide you. Daily manna still provide you. God be with you till we meet again.
Thank you.
I didn't turn it off.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Have a great week. And thank you, Steve, for everything. Appreciate all of you. Okay.